In this episode of the Exploring Information Security Podcast, a career panel on transitioning from a technical cybersecurity professional to a cybersecurity leader.
Computers now have primary control of critical functions.
Houston, recommend vector transfer.
Your go for APU shutdown on time.
Roger, go for deploy.
Nice to be in orbit.
Welcome to the Exploring Information Security Podcast, where you will learn, explore, and grow your security mindset. I am your host, Timothy D. Block, and in this episode, we will be exploring transitioning from technical to leadership in the cybersecurity space. With me to do that are the following guests. Chris Anderson, a security consultant and architect known for his pot-stirring approach to solving complex organizational security problems. Roger Brotz, CISO at Arcadia Healthcare with over 4 decades of experience and starting his journey in 1977. And then finally, Mike Vetri, Senior Director of Security Operations at Veeva and a former Air Force Cyber Operations Officer. Show notes can be found at exploresec.com/EIS. Feedback for the show, you can hit me up, timothy.dblock@exploresec.com. You can also reach out on LinkedIn. Also rate the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. That helps grow the show. So this was an episode. This was a live recording. I'm hoping to do some more of these, but we did this at an ICM cyber hosted event in Franklin, Tennessee. Papa P's. So Randy Rodden is the host for that event. He's the one that works at ICM Cyber. Puts us on every month, where a lot of security leaders get together and just kind of do like a happy hour type thing. It has cigars too. So if you're in the area and interested in cigars, be sure to check that out. But he and I have been talking about doing a podcast that we can record live at one of these sessions. So that's what we did for this first one on, it being January, a lot of people thinking about careers. So whether you're just trying to get into the field, you can hear some people that have been in for quite a bit of time that took different paths, but then also people that might be looking to transition from, a technical role into a leadership, and some of the pitfalls and some of the things to consider when jumping, up into management, essentially. This episode is also sponsored by Talus. They have multiple products in the IAM and software security space. They were there as well, sponsoring the event. So this is also a sponsored podcast for them. So again, great conversation. This is a live event. I'm hoping to do more of these, so hopefully I can bring some more, but not really much else to say. Let's get right into it.
I didn't have to.
You don't need to prep for this.
I didn't look ahead.
I
Look quickly at them and then ran out of time.
Yeah. But Chris, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. Chris Anderson. I'm often referred to as by my initials, CTA. For whatever reason, that's stuck, and so I answer to both. Hey, you works. I've been called much worse, so choose your own adventure.
What's CTA you said?
Just my initials.
Oh, okay.
Well, part of them, but my initials.
Gotcha. Also, yeah, okay. And then what do you do?
So I like to joke and tell folks I stir the pot and cause problems. I'm kind of like an internal, consultant, trusted advisor. I'm currently in the architecture space. So I kind of get paratroopered into a lot of different areas, security as well. I work quite close with security. And part of my background, which I think we'll talk about a little bit, is really security is everyone's responsibility, right, in terms of being effective. And that's always stuck with me. I had a leader that impressed that with me early on. And so really, no matter where you're at, it doesn't matter if you're sweeping the floors, right? If you see a paper with PHI on it, pick it up, right? Do the right thing. And so I do work quite close with security. And that's always been kind of near and dear to my heart.
Okay. Do you need to say anything? Because I know Roger will need to say something about not being the opinions you hold are not not your employer's opinions.
Is there a disclaimer?
Yeah. Well, no, for you, like
Chatham House.
He didn't say his
here,
employer, so he's fine.
Okay.
I did.
There you go.
I mean, this is what we didn't specify.
You don't have to. If you feel like you don't have to, I'm just giving you that opportunity.
All good.
Yeah. Roger, go ahead.
Yes, the opinions that I say are not the opinions of my
Personal.
employer, but my personal opinions. I'm Roger Brotz, the current CISO at Arcadia Healthcare.
Okay. And kind of a little bit of background. We got a little bit of Chris's background.
Oh, yeah, a little bit of background. So,
Like, what do you actually do? What would you
what do I
say you
do?
do here?
Wow,
question.
that is a good question. Orchestrate, maybe, a lot of very technical people and very smart people, big but yet small team of individuals to make sure we're keeping our systems secure. But I've been in the industry about 4 decades, which kind of ages me, and I think we're going to get into some of the things that we started talking about. But I looked up when I got my first computer, which was in 77, 78. So it's about 11 years old back then. So TRS-80. Radio Shack, if anybody knows about Radio Shack.
I started when I was 3, so
There you go.
I
You
can relate.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Michael?
Hey, I'm Michael Vetri. I'm the Senior Director of Security Operations at Veeva. The opinions that I express are not reflective of the opinions of my company. So, just hearing what Roger did there, great move. And so I lead all of the threat intelligence operations at Veeva, incident response, logging, analysis, and custom security tool engineering and building at our company.
Okay, cool.
In the field been in a leadership position in cyber for about 13, going on 14 years now. Loved it. Love every moment of it. Learned a lot, and we'll get into that later in the podcast.
Yeah.
So,
I will, and whoever wants to go first, how did you get started? Like, what drew you to the cybersecurity field?
I'll go first.
Can go.
That I say that. I like to joke and say that, and you'll pick that up. I enjoy humor, and that's how I deal with things as well. But I like to say that I did not choose security. Security chose me. No, I had a leader, a mentor, who basically gave me a chance. Right at one point, it was very boots on the ground security work. It was doing a lot of compliance, audits, walking around, make sure no one left their password taped under their keyboard, ensuring that if there was a piece of paper that had HIPAA information, PHI on it, it got shredded appropriately. Real boots on the ground work. But I learned a lot. I feel like that really taught me a valuable lesson, which was, you need a good, healthy balance and mixture of curiosity, common sense, and being able to notice things that most people would just overlook or walk by. And I feel like that served me well. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Roger.
Yeah, I think for me, it was when I was a little kid, I used to play cops and robbers, and I was always a cop. So I think there's a lot, kind of a crossover around rules and around security that happens from people in those kind of industries that I think if I could go back in time, I would probably do something like be in the FBI or something like that. So I think there's a lot around that for my background that I really enjoyed, and just keeping things secure, protecting people, things like that. I was that first responder kind of approach. So I think, that's what kind of got me into that, specifically around security. Again, being in the industry for so long, like security back in the 80s when I really started working, mid-80s, was not what security is today. So it was really, there were viruses, some other things, but it was very simple back then. So as time just kind of passed and that area and opportunity opened up, it was really kind of driving into that space a little bit more and just having that kind of approach around security, checking things. I have an audit background too, like making sure things are right. That's always kind of been on my radar.
Yeah, how did you get started, Michael?
So security also chose me. So when I went to college, I wanted to be an Air Force pilot. I went through the Air Force Academy. And once I got into pilot training, I studied chemistry, but once I got to the pilot training, I performed some internal discernment and asked myself, is this really what I want to do for the rest of my life? I knew even as a 23-year-old kid, I wanted a family one day, and I wanted to make sure that I would be able to be there for him, and constantly, flying and being deployed. Is that what I wanted to do? So I raised my hand to be reclassified, and I put in my preference sheet what other careers I wanted to do in the Air Force. Spoiler alert, cyber operations was not number 1 or 2 or 3, but it was on the sheet somewhere. But eventually, I remember being at attention, listening to Colonel Jeanette tell me that congratulations, you're going to be a 17 Delta, which is cyber operations. And I thought that was pretty cool. This was back in 2011. And I remember leaving his office pretty stoked about it. Like, that sounds pretty interesting. And my instructor pilot, who already knew what my career field was going to be, but gave the vice wing commander the honor of notifying me, the first words he said to me was, "Michael, I'm really sorry about your new career field. If you need someone to talk to, let me know."
Was it congratulations and condolences? At the same time?
It was a condolences from an instructor pilot, and that was the perception of cybersecurity back in 2011, at least in the Air Force. And looking back, I'm so glad I chose it. I mean, it's the next warfighting domain. It's cybersecurity is all over national security strategy, and I think we really are on the front lines of the next war in, like, so to speak, the 5th dimension. We have land, sea, air, and space, and now we have cyberspace. So it's an exciting time to be in this career.
One thing what's interesting is you'll see there's not a magic formula, right? Mm-hmm. Like, everyone has different paths, which is always fascinating to me. So
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Well, I thought it was funny you guys said you backed into it, because I backed into it as well. Like, I was supposed to go into the Army as a paralegal, which I think I would have been good in the legal field, but my parents always pushed me. You argue with us too much. Yeah. You'd be a really good lawyer. And that didn't end up happening. That fell through. And
that explains a lot.
Yeah.
Tim and I work together, and I got an insight now.
Right.
I think the correlation to the military is great. I mean, I think the front lines are moving, right? And I think they're moving into our space now, because it's not always a weapons war, it's a digital.
Well,
right.
you mentioned that as well, right? Like, I mean, even like we're talking about when we got started, which was some time back, right? And like to now, it's quite a bit different.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And that resonates for sure.
And we're approaching new ways to conduct war using cyberspace somewhere in the sequence of war. For example, if we need to get in behind enemy lines, imagine using cyber warfare and generating non-kinetic effects to essentially disarm surface-to-air missiles, so that the fighters and the bombers can come in safely, clear the area, and then let the Marines and the Army in next.
Yeah.
So,
and there's implications, right? Even outside of business, I feel like you talked about cops and robbers and those type of things, and there's a lot of truth to that for a lot of guys, I think, growing up. But the reality is, I feel like if I were 7, I wouldn't say I want to grow up and be in cybersecurity, right? Like, that's not like a train of thought that's pretty natural. But in hindsight, like, I'm certainly grateful that I did sort of fall back into it, right? Because I feel like it's really shaped a lot of my perspective, even how I approach my personal life, right? I mean, helping my parents navigate weird text messages, them being just naturally a bit cautious, more than most, and just a heightened awareness, I think, is beneficial and that I appreciate now in hindsight, that I don't know that I would have got otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, it truly bleeds in everybody's personal life, right? You just mentioned elderly parents, kids, sextortion, all that kind of stuff. Now it's just crazy how, without that kind of mindset, it becomes very difficult to navigate in this world. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think the theme of doing the right thing too. You talked about cops and robbers, and kind of the military again. That kind of background of law and order, right? And I say it. Some people don't like it. I think we're just hall monitors when we're talking about being in a business, because we're kind of just telling people, hey, you're not doing the right thing. This is the better way to do it. And a lot of people too that find that, like, excel at that and trying to solve the problem of how do we do this in the right way while still allowing the business to operate. I think there's a bit of a challenge aspect to it. Well,
you have a perspective, right, that not everyone has. At least we're all sort of common in this InfoSec sort of space here, where not everyone gets that. Generally, I think to a fault sometimes, we get labeled as the business of no, right? And so you got to be able to articulate the whys, and I think that plays a part of it. But don't know where I'm going
Yeah.
with that. But
Well, I mean, for me, situational awareness is just
Right.
key, right? So, I mean,
Absolutely.
whether it comes to cyber stuff, like just
Yeah.
people physical security, right? Like, hey, so when you're walking your car,
Yeah.
you got packages, like pay attention to what's going on. And
Right.
you got to do that not only in physical security, but you've got to do that now with
Yeah.
cybercrime and text
Well,
messages
even
and all that kind
educating
of
my
stuff.
daughter, like, hey, like you kind of mall, you don't be on your phone the whole time as you're walking to your vehicle by
Yeah.
yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
like, this heightens his awareness that's beneficial in a lot of areas of life.
Yeah.
Even outside.
Cyber's one,
professional.
yeah.
And I think, we say we're in the business of no, but I would argue we are in the business of promoting profit. And the reason I say that is because sometimes we get the stigma of security is not a revenue generating department of a company. But I would argue it is a profit generating, because without it, you think about what profit is, it's revenue minus cost, correct? So the more robust your security team is, the less costly that your business can, the less cost your business suffers
Absolutely.
from a ransomware or any you name your malware. And so there's you got to see security as an insurance investment versus we're having it because we got to checkbox it. I would argue that if you have a solid threat intelligence team that can help support the fact that some of these endeavors that we want to do, albeit they may be costly, they're relevant, because if we don't do it, here's your list of adversaries that are, this intelligence is timely, relevant, that we can prove, hey, if you don't invoke these security controls or patch to these, vulnerabilities, you name it, the standard stories we hear all the time, then these can be the potential ramifications. So pick your hurt. It can hurt now by getting through it, or it can really hurt later. And, and some companies are willing to assume that risk, and that's fine, but you have to balance the risk, the cost, and the ROI of doing it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So one of the things I like always talking about is failure, right? And what is a brief story about a time you failed in your career and what you learned from it?
I'll take this one first. So some time ago, we had an incident. It was the big one, right? The catastrophic, cataclysmic, all hands on deck. And, without getting into the details of it, what the failure entailed wasn't necessarily handling the incident. We handled it well for the company. But what I realized, by the time I blinked, I was like, oh my gosh, 2 weeks has gone by, and we've been pulling nonstop 12 to 16 hour days, like team wide. And, once it hit me that as I'm looking at my other engineers and everybody on the call, red eyes and all that, it's like, you know what? I'm at a decision point right now. I'm past the decision point. This is where I failed, where I should have started thinking about, okay, do I need minimum manning? Do I need minimum staffing? Do I need just who I need here at work to cover this incident? And start asking higher level leadership, hey, I need coverage. Other things may be dropped, your routine training or, reports or whatever, because this is arguably the biggest incident we've ever dealt with. So where I failed was not detecting that earlier. How I personally recovered is, I spent a little bit of that weekend putting together this, modified shift schedule where I needed just the minimum amount of engineers to work this incident, to go into certain tools, look at certain indicators that we need to, collect them and see where else, there could be a presence. So it wasn't necessarily a failure of executing incident response as it was over executing and me as a leader not detecting burnout sooner. And, my folks that are obviously extremely hardworking and want to get the job done, I admire their efforts, but it came to the point where you got to look out not only for the best interests of the business, but also the well-being of your team. Because I always ask people, and I always offer this when folks say, oh, we don't need, too many security folks. It's your job to clean up the mess and all that. If you're about to have open heart surgery, would you want a surgeon that is burned out and hasn't stopped for a week straight? Would you want that kind of surgeon operating on your heart? Then why would you want the equivalent of that burnout operating on your security system where they're so mistake prone? So I think, Lord willing, I lucked out. I was blessed, nothing bad happened, but I believe we were almost pretty much on the cusp of, fatigue yielding such enormous mistakes that they could have been unrecoverable, but we got through it.
Yeah,
That's my story.
And you said heart surgeon, but I think that also applies to the recent government shutdown, where they're trying to make sure they have air traffic controllers because there's strict requirements around how much sleep the flight crew, air traffic controllers get. And if you don't have enough, it's like we need to shut down flights. So to your point, like burnout, I do think it's something that's often overlooked in our field, but I think leaders are starting to see that a little bit more, because when I was in, I think it was a little bit more, you're going to do, it was expected 24/7, 365. Now, I mean, like you said, when you're doing that kind of work, you need to be in it, but a good leader is going to allow you to adjust. Hey, come in the next morning, make sure everything's operational, then go home, right? And let's adjust it for the next week or whatever.
Yeah, well, my therapist has worked a lot with me. And I don't remember any of my failures, but
what? Really?
But according to ChatGPT, it says, given my track record building a cybersecurity program, leading teams, winning awards, my failures are most certainly inflection points and not roadblocks. I think in all reality and being serious, I think burnout, just identifying things, like you said, hindsight's 20/20, right? So whether it's hiring the right people or whether it's a mistake, doing that or whatever, not seeing some of the signs early on that could have prevented some things, or just too much stress and working too long and then realizing it after you get to a certain point where it's like, this is unhealthy. Now, I think to your point, Jim, there's more awareness around that, especially in the CISO and security leadership roles. There's a lot of focus now on burnout and things like that. So I think that's helping the industry. It's helping the individuals that are kind of a part part of it. But yeah.
So what was your failure?
Yeah,
that's the question.
There's an inflection point. Like I don't remember. Like my wife tells me.
But it doesn't have to be as a CISO, right? It can be like early in your career where you started with punch cards. Like, did you put the wrong punch card in somewhere?
Well, I'm sure there's been a lot of mistakes.
Did you burn one by accident?
I don't doubt that for a second, that there's been a lot of mistakes and missteps with that. But I mean, my wife reminds me, like, I don't remember most of my childhood.
Oh, really?
So there's probably, those roadblocks are probably blocked somewhere in my memory. those inherent failures that I've had.
Some of that may be a blessing. You look forward, right? I mean,
So you got a whole page written down there. So it's a lot of red.
I'll give the clip notes. And those are all failures, actually. Failures are opportunities for growth, right? I mean, and so I feel like, gosh, I take failures to heart, and I feel like I have learned quite a bit because I failed a lot. But there are two that sort of stand out to me that are, I would say, are like bookends. One was very early on. As a new leader, I held on to too long the tech that got me to where I was, that I enjoyed. And then on the back half of that, I was probably a little too more focused on the advancement opportunities than I was my team, right? And so really at the end of the day, both of those examples were disservice, right, to my team, that were not given opportunities. And I was too focused on self, right? And ultimately that resulted in pride and all the things that I had to swallow at one point and eat a couple helpings of humble pie, and I'm grateful for now, in hindsight. And so, like you said, hindsight is 20/20, and gosh, I mean, I would probably not be the same person I am today if it wasn't for the failures.
Yeah, I feel like I do personal root cause analysis on a lot of that stuff. To your point, like how do you get there? What it is? So, I mean, I'd say there's definitely a lot of micro failures along the way. Like, how do we correct this and try to make sure we're doing the right thing? Again, whether that's hiring somebody, whether you mentioned like being too deep in technical. I know as I transitioned into a leadership role, very technical person, still technical person, and a lot of times that kind of gets me in trouble where I've stayed too far into the technical weeds. And also for me, a lot of times it's around letting people do what they need to do. So it's not that I don't think they're doing a good job. It's me just kind of letting go and the work getting done.
I agree, and that transition is hard, from that individual contributor to more of a leader role. And I think probably the reason why that resonates with me is because it impacted other people. It impacted me too, but I mean, like again, it was really me being, doing a disservice to my team, right, and giving them opportunities, and because I had my focus in the wrong place.
Yeah. This goes back to something I told my team at one of our corporate hub weeks when we got together, is that as a leader, I always ask folks, do you have a passion for leadership? If you're about to step into a leadership role, do you have a passion for it? And then I further ask them, do you even know what the word passion means? And it comes from the Latin word, which means to suffer. So if you do have a passion for something, you're going to be willing to suffer for it. And you're going to make those mistakes. You're in a high visibility position where the stakes are high, where the costs are high, the risk can sometimes be high. And let's be real, any of your listeners are going to agree that we're in a field where there's going to be sacrifices made in work and in personal life. But sometimes we need to know where we can, we say work-life balance, and it's never going to be perfectly 8 hours a day and then all that. I would say there's a work-life integration, but it goes back to, there's a very incredible gift that I received from a commander a long time ago. He was fluent in Chinese, and he gave me a very sentimental gift. It was a scroll written in Chinese, and of course I couldn't read it. So I said, okay, boss, I'll bite. What does it say? And, he realized I was going back into the cyber field, and he says, that translates to no amount of success at work can compensate for a failure at the home. And sometimes we get so wrapped up in our careers and understanding, we got to chase AI and defend this and be ahead of ransomware, be ahead of these threat actors and get to the next, rung in the corporate ladder. But what is it costing us on the home front? If it's costing us, you're always missing your daughter's soccer games or the cello recitals, or you blink and suddenly they're going off to college. You ask yourself, was it worth it? And I thank the Lord that right now I'm still in the position where I can monitor that. My kids aren't too old, but, I still have time on my side, but, it won't always be there. And so I think that's one thing we need to make sure we remember when we talk about, failures. It's not just at work, but are we giving too much to work that we start realizing there's a failure going on at the home? And you never want that. That'll still be there when the job's over.
I like that work-life integration. I dislike work-life balance because it's never 50-50, right? I mean, I say work-life harmony, very similar, right? Because it's going to ebb and flow, and you need to find that, and certainly for your own sanity.
Yeah, I like harmony too.
Yeah, and I think it's a great question to ask too, because we deal with a lot of failure, right? Because as much protection as we can put in, something's going to happen, and you have to go deal with it, right? Or again, I think that's just part of the journey for a lot of security people is you make failures throughout your career, and you just, as you said, Roger, is you learn from them and kind of move on.
Yeah. Well, and that's I think crucial to a leadership role is fail fast, fail often. Or fail often, fail fast, right? And I'd be able to quickly, acknowledge that and then pivot, right? Learn from it and move forward and not get stuck there.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's a great...
own them too, I would say.
Yeah,
definitely own it. Like, I mean, it's like we're going to make failures and nobody's perfect. So whether it's implementing a technology and implementing control, whatever it is. So
what does it say? Acknowledging the issues is the first step in recovery, right? And
exactly. That's what my therapist tells me all the time.
I figured you would relate to that, so I brought it up.
And there's several aspects of that. You own it. You have a course of action how you're going to fix it. And, I go back to a lot of sentimental stories. One of my, high school football coaches always said, it's never as good as it seems. It's never as bad as it seems. Somewhere in the middle lies reality, right? Sure. And keeping this football analogy, one of the greatest quarterbacks, if not the greatest ever played, Tom Brady, he threw interceptions. He fumbled the ball, but we still see him as one of the greatest that ever played. So we can't get too wrapped up around ourselves when we, metaphorically throw that interception or we miss the open port or we, put it's something that where we shoot ourselves in the foot that we shouldn't have. These things are going to happen. We need to focus on how are we doing overall and not internally cripple ourselves from these mistakes as long as we know how we're going to recover from it.
And that's universally true. I've always been told that the Babe Ruth, similar story, right, where he struck out more than he hit homers, but he's known for hitting homers, right?
Yeah.
And so, there's...
Look at Brett Favre, too. I mean, I
was waiting, by the way, when he mentioned Tom Brady, I was like, someone better bring up the counterpoint. I got the Packers fan sitting over here.
That tees you up nicely.
I was holding my tongue for a minute.
Favorite teams. How about Lamar Jackson?
God, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt Brett Favre.
Just that, I mean, Brett Favre threw a lot of interceptions, but what you remember about Brett Favre, I mean, he was a gunslinger.
Yeah,
I mean, was kind of his. So, but I mean, he made amazing plays, and he wasn't afraid to fail at that and throw that ball up. But who knew what was going to come out of it? He gave his team a chance to do something with that too, and sometimes they failed as part of it. So it wasn't always Brett, right?
Yeah.
I mean, an interception in football is not just because of the quarterback. So
yeah. I mean, and I think sports is a great viewpoint of there's a lot of failure going on. And you see it at a very high level. So again, just you kind of have to get comfortable with failure in cybersecurity, whether it's yourself or just the controls that are in place, because they're going to fail at some point. You're going to have to go respond to that. So I love, because we had a couple perfect segues there, but the conversation was so great. So I don't have a great segue into this, but what was a pivotal? Because we've kind of discussed this. What is a pivotal moment? Or decision in your career that helped you transition from a technical contributor to a leadership role? Because that's one of the things I say a lot, right? These are two different things. I don't think you can be technical and still a good leader. I think you can have some technical stuff, but at some point, some of what you did on a day-to-day basis starts to fade, and you have to start leaning on your people. And you really do need to lean on your people, because your job is very different. It's not ones and zeros necessarily. It's more like, in a computer sense, it's ones and zeros. In a budget sense, it's dealing with fires. It's honestly dealing with the most complicated computers on the system, which is people.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I've always loved the technical side, but I think it was a leader of mine that came to me and said, "Hey, I see leadership in you. I feel like you not only need to be technical, but you can start to lead and transition into that." I mean, I think I'd be happy doing either one right now, but I tend to think I know better than what most people are doing, so I want to lead that piece, or see things being done wrong, and it's I think I can do better, so help me lead kind of in that space. And not hopefully that's not coming across as being arrogant. It's one of those things where it's some people don't have vision. I think I have vision. I have planning kind of in my background, so it helps me to say, hey, I know how to do budget stuff. I know how to do these other things that are part of kind of the leadership role as well, and I understand the technology well enough. Even as you said, as you kind of back off, it's true, you lose some of that skill, but I still understand the technology enough to say that's the right move to make, or that's not the right move to make.
Well, and I want to make a clear definition of if you can't be a people leader and still be doing stuff on the keyboard, right?
Nope,
and that's what I'm saying, is that you can still be technical and understand this stuff, and picking up stuff and understanding how the systems work, but at the end of the day, you're not jumping in and doing the stuff on the keyboard.
And I think it's bad, actually, if you do. I think
that's
there's a level, unless you're a super small company, I think that's a bad approach.
Well, and that's the first failure I mentioned, right? I mean, it's very similar. And I think the key for me was learning that leadership is a choice, right? And it's a mind shift from I do the work to I empower others. But I'm also a firm believer that you can lead no matter where you sit in the organization, right? Leadership is not necessarily a rank. You can have leadership qualities about you. If you're helping people to the left, to the right, all around you, you can be a solid leader people can get behind, right? And so there's sort of some nuance there, but certainly leadership is a choice. It's an action you take, and not necessarily, it is a mind shift, right? From I do the work to now I empower others and remove obstacles and those things. So there's a shift there as well, but it's, I think, a little more complex than that.
I think when you talk about one of the most pivotal moments in my career, it was going back to that crazy incident I mentioned where I probably should have put folks on an alternate shift schedule earlier. Without going into too much detail, I would argue my pivotal moment came in the inverse, where I did get very technical because I saw what my engineers were going through. They were stressed the hell out, and I was like, I'm going to dig deep in here and figure this out. This ends tonight. And so without getting into the details, I was looking at all kinds of patterns and file structure schema to figure out how does this all play out? How does this, application work that we're barely familiar with? How do we know when something's outbound versus inbound? And I mean, this application is, I'll just say, is foreign built. So I was on, web pages that I had to tell Google Chrome, yes, translate from this other language and learn it and all. But there was just something in me that was like, I'm proving my credibility that I belong here and I care about this team. And this incident ends tonight, where I'm cracking this. And so I stayed up until probably 3 or 4 in the morning, understanding this file structure schema, and it just hit me after I'm looking at all these patterns and these, directory patterns, and I figured out eventually, beyond reasonable doubt, what was going on, how things were potentially leaking out, and then brief that to my team, my leadership, and then that eventually led to, legal proceedings. But it was one of those things where I was like, you know what? There's one of my favorite quotes that I love. It's from John Quincy Adams, and it says, if your actions inspire others to do more, dream more, learn more, and become more, then you're a leader. Right. So sometimes you do have to roll up those sleeves, dig deep, and tell yourself that this problem ends now. We're not going to dwell anymore on it. So at some point, you have to weigh the cost of going through the bureaucratic process of asking this, and just eventually buckling down, doing it yourself, and getting this across the finish line. And all of that with the mindset of we are acting in the absolute best interest of the business, not going exactly cowboy or Wild Wild West, but saying, you know what, enough is enough. We're finishing this fight right now. And so I think that was one of the more pivotal moments where it built credibility for my team with my leadership, and that really kind of convinced me, yes, I belong in a leadership position finally.
Yeah. I love the John Quincy Adams quote. I've heard that one as well, and again, it reemphasizes, right? Like it's a mindset, like you said. It's you can lead from the back. It's not always associated with authority or responsibility per se. It often is, but not always, right? Again, so yeah, I just always encourage folks to lead no matter where you're at, because it is a mindset.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that after probably 2 decades in leadership, but 3 decades in the industry, I went back to an individual contributor role and moved here to Nashville because we didn't have jobs, and I got a job and got an opportunity, and it's one of those things that, again, I just felt led to go back into the leadership role after a while being there. To your point of I want to just kind of take things to the next level, and sometimes it's harder as an individual contributor to kind of do that, and sometimes it's tough when you have bad leadership. It's great when you've got great leaders and being part of that, but when you have bad leaders, it's like you can do better, take it to that next level.
Like, use your strengths where they're needed. Right. I mean, in some organizations, you need to be out front. Yeah. Because if you have those qualities, then by all means, take advantage of them and use them. If you have a lot of great mentors and you've had that impressed into you, then take advantage of it and lead by example. Right. And so sometimes, there is a need for that. And
Cool. What's the most challenging aspect of leading a cybersecurity team today?
I'll start with that one. I'm going to argue empathy and maintaining empathy, because we're in such an analytical role, and we have our empathetic system and our analytical systems in our mind, and sometimes it's hard to contextually switch from it's time to be analytical to when someone brings us a problem. Okay, I have to suddenly be empathetic, understand where they're coming from. They have a serious problem going on the home front. There is a study published by the Harvard Business Review where they analyzed about 189 companies, and they found out that when leadership embraces empathy and all 5 of the emotional intelligence principles up top, leadership, they tend to exceed their annual revenue goals by about 20%. And inversely, which is even crazier, when they do not embrace emotional intelligence and empathy, they tend to fall short by almost the exact same margin of 20%. So being in a field that is high tempo, that is extremely stressful, when everything's always on the line, it's extremely difficult and stressful on the mind to step back and say, okay, let's take a breather, let's think about how we're going to approach this, and let's make sure that everybody is getting the appropriate amount of rest, recovery, despite this being a hurricane of an incident. So, we want to be that eye of the hurricane when everything's swirling around us, to be the one that they can lean on, because as soon as they see us stressed out, we lost our composure, we lost our bearing, then everything's going to trickle down to them, and it's going to become chaos and irreparable. So we owe that to them to always show that calm demeanor and always be ready for what's next.
Chris and I are looking at each other.
I was going to interject too, and I think that's a good point. But and what it brought, the first image that came to my head. Have you seen that skit where the guy's talking to the girl and he's like, she's like, I just have this pounding headache, and she has like a nail literally in her head.
I've seen that, yes.
And the guy's like, but you have it, and she's like, but you're not listening to me. And it to me, it sounds like it's a little bit like saying, hey, like you just listening, right? That's all she really wants is listening, not to solve the problem. Which, like you said, that's where you started, was the analytical part. When in security, we're always trying to solve problems. When you're dealing with people, sometimes it's like, and I've had this scenario too, where someone's interacting with someone else outside of security, and they're trying to talk to them about something that they're doing, and they're just like, this person's grumpy, and I was like, have you put yourself in their shoes? Have you asked them like if something's going on? And the person went and talked to them, like had it, and they're really good at like socializing with them. They found out that person's like dog had just died, right? And so we're again, complex systems. We're all going through different things, and people are going to respond in different ways.
Correct. And I set out on a study earlier this year to answer the question: what are the biggest things that people care about in their cybersecurity leaders? Not leaders, but cybersecurity leaders. And I went to 100 different sources. I went to scholarly research articles. I went to cybersecurity leaders in the industry, and I went to published blogs, and I tallied up all of these traits that are highly desired. And what I found is that in 60 out of 100, 60% of all the sources said they want a leader who is skilled at communication, a cybersecurity leader who's skilled at communication. Number two, at 59%, they said emotional intelligence. What was even crazier is that I took one more step and I researched what are the biggest reasons why people will leave their cybersecurity job. And what I found is that the biggest reasons why people will leave directly correlates to the most desired traits they want out of their leader. When you do not exercise that leadership trait, it causes the biggest reason why they leave. Burnout, indifference, all those were things they named, and that directly correlates to emotional intelligence.
Well, and the stats show, I think you're right on. The stats show that most people don't leave their job or their role; they leave their leader, right?
Correct.
So, but you touched on something, that I was thinking of, and when I think of challenges, some of the biggest challenges that the really InfoSec faces, burnout's certainly true, and all those things. But really, I often see that InfoSec and sometimes leaders in InfoSec have a hard time translating, and I'm using air quotes here for people that can't see us. This is
I appreciate
bad.
that, by the way.
This is bad, because we have a lot of smart people that can recognize when things are not right, when things look scary and this is bad, to really connect that to business practicality, right? Because really, from the business leadership side, they really want to know, well, why is this important to me and why now, right? And if you can make that translation, you're ahead of the curve. And I feel like a lot of teams are unable to articulate that, right? So you're talking about being able to articulate and be able to paint the picture, because I think that's important, because especially a lot of the folks on the business side are non-technical. And the reality is we've got to sort of bridge that gap. And I feel like that's often a struggle and a failure in a lot of organizations.
You looking at me? Yeah. I mean, as I look at the question, I think there's a couple ways to get it. Like, are we looking at what's the toughest from a leadership perspective? Like, how can we be better to communicate to executive leadership to do a better job with our teams? Or I think a lot of times too with a lot of technical folks, and you have different people from different generations even, it's like how do you address some of this stuff, because they're looking at things totally differently. So some of these people came up and grew up in security, so they maybe have a security mindset. Some people were in one role or one other area. Maybe they were in IT, maybe they were in something else, and now they're coming over to IT, like how they translate that, and just getting everybody to kind of communicate and be cohesive in what they're doing. But I know there's been, talking to peers too, just a lot of generational things that are very difficult as far as leading a team, much less the diversity of where people learn the craft that they're the best at and how to try to train that or manage that trait. So, I think it's important that I try to, instill really leading from the standpoint of I want my staff to be very successful in what they do, and that may mean that they're successful somewhere else, right? So not that we build them up, not that I want them to leave, but I want to build them up to a point where they can be very successful elsewhere, and they can do and be what they want to be when they grow up. I think that's a very important part. So it's just managing people is just difficult because there's so many different, like you said, people are coming at it. Some people are having struggles at home. People are having other things. Like all that stuff comes into the office because we spend so much time together.
Oh, yeah.
That it's difficult to navigate some of those things.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. This is gonna be the final question too. What's one self-care practice you find most effective in managing the stress of being in your role? So we've gone from you worrying about other people now you have to worry about yourself. Like, I want to yell the. Have you guys seen Parks and Recreation?
Yeah.
Treat yourself.
Treat yourself.
I will begin with this. Getting into a place that has nothing to do with cybersecurity and what is beneficial for you. So what I do, I'm an assistant coach for my daughter's soccer team, not because, I'm the biggest fan of soccer. I mean, I play goalkeeper, but it's fun and she enjoys it. And it gives me an opportunity to make sure that I am still investing time in my kids, despite the demands of this job. And the other thing I do is, I like to invest in cardio. So I have a Peloton bike, got a treadmill, and I like to make sure that I'm keeping myself healthy, not only for myself, but also for my family, because this job can produce stress. Stress produces cortisol, and it can, the way we operate in cybersecurity can be vastly different from the way we should be operating as fathers and mothers and husbands and wives to each other. So the benefit of just getting out and getting into that exercise has been exponentially, an improvement for me. One of the things I was talking to somebody else that's here is, they noticed my boots I'm wearing. I was like, there's actually a story behind that. I gave myself a little bit of a 3-month challenge, and I told myself however many miles I run, that's another $1 in these 3 months that I can spend on a pair of boots because I really want a nice pair of boots. So I ran a pretty decent amount of mileage, and it kept me in shape. It kept me, fit, and I was able to get myself a pair of Cayman boots, and they're great. But things like that kind of keep you motivated outside of just the work life, and it's and it shows your family that hey, you work hard for something, you get it, instead of just like, well, yeah, I can afford it, so I'll just get it. Like, no, give yourself a little bit of a challenge to keep your mind away from cybersecurity and the threats of AI and the threats of ransomware, and am I going to be working a 90-hour week this week or not, kind of a deal. So that's how I do it. And of course, investing in our particular faith and making sure that I'm staying humble and asking for guidance where I need it in church. So that's how I deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think faith that's a great point. Faith is a good part of that. I think exercise is a good part of that as well. So before I moved to Nashville, I used to play drums in our praise band and stuff, and my wife could tell there was balance in my life. And moving to Nashville, it's like there's no way I can play here. Just different level, right? Yeah. There I was, a big fish, little pond. Big fish, little pond. Here I'm in a little fish, big pond, and it's like I can't compete. So I don't do that, and she can tell when I come home and I'm just like barking orders. She's like,
"So you don't have a drum set still at home that you just go bang on when you get your frustration out?"
For a while, I had a digital kit, but it was still banging in the bottom. I tried it; it didn't work out. So I set a goal like 2 years ago to do more Legos. So I love Legos, so like building Legos, but I think I've built like 2 kits in the last 2 years, so only like one a year. But it's very evident to my wife and my family when I don't have that balance and all I'm in is computer cyber mode and I'm just preaching and doing all that stuff. So between working out and trying to get that other stuff, I don't have much of a commute anymore. So I used to kind of lay back when my commute was to listen to different things, listen to books or whatever, and I don't have that anymore. So I've got to be really careful about making sure. So I use my wife as a barometer with some of that stuff, and it's like, okay, we got to do something else. So we do, like here we go to concerts and other things. So I do still like music, of course, and doing some of that to get that balance. But I think you can get stuck very quickly and very, very deep in that if you don't take care of yourself. And health is so important because the stressors will just kill you, literally.
speaking of books, had you read, Good to Great, if you'd have put 10,000 hours in, you might be fantastic with books. I don't know. I think you'll see a theme here, right? Really disconnect. And that manifests in a variety of ways. For me, I take walks. We're fortunate our campus is, on the Maryland Farms Greenway here in Nashville, Tennessee. Beautiful area, so getting out walking. But, it's music, family, just a lot of opportunities to disconnect. And sometimes just having a conversation with someone that's not about work. Even if you're at the office, go take a walk and go find somebody and talk about something that's not work for a moment, But again, common theme, disconnect somehow, whatever that looks like for you. That's certainly, there's a value there. I think that's important.
Correct. Your pickleball's great. But I
would love to see you play pickleball, by the way.
At our new office, I think I want to get into pickleball in the parking lot. So we'll do that.
It's true. And I would say as soon as you come onto your new job, whatever it may be, your position, enforcing those boundaries from the get-go, and not thinking, oh, I'm the new guy, I got to prove myself, and it's okay if they intrude in my personal life. For emergencies, if there's a catastrophic incident, well, you got no choice. But, you're on PTO, and try to enforce that as much as possible. Because all the great things that all three of us have said right now do not exist if you do not set those boundaries up. Because once you say yes too many times, it is very difficult to backtrack and suddenly say, no, I'm not doing that anymore, because you've already given your work, your job, the expectation that, well, if we can bother them on PTO, they're going to answer. Like, do your best to not let that happen. And as hard as it can be for a leader, one of the wisest things, my wife has taught me throughout our marriage is the more you say yes to things, the more you're saying no to others. The more we say yes to meetings, the more we're saying no to our work we got to get done. So we have to say yes to that eventually. So if we say yes to that, now what are we saying no to, which is our personal time we should be with our family and our kids, and we're missing practices and games and all that. So it's very insidious and it's unnoticeable until it's too late, and we have to be cognizant of that.
Well, and the reality is for most folks who are either new or just getting started their career, et cetera, I think there's a misconception that you've got to be always on, always available. And I would say good leaders can recognize when their folks are out of balance, right? And so hopefully, the message here is don't get caught up in that. Be realistic about what you can and can't do, and overcommit is certainly a problem, and burnout's a reality. You'll learn eventually. Hopefully you can do it sooner rather than later.
Yeah, find that leader, because as leaders, we got to set that tone from the top. And if we're working 80 hours a week, whether you're asking your employees to do that or not, there's a level of what they see, and then there's a level of, well, is that the expectation that's being set here? So I've had some leaders that were crazy, like they were always on all the time, like 80-hour weeks. It's like, but they didn't necessarily come out directly and ask us to work that amount of time, but they were sending emails, they were sending texts, and to your point, it's like, so you got to be careful. Find that, and if you've got a leader that's doing that, be cautious around some of that
there's
stuff.
There's a lot of diminishing returns. At some point, you're unproductive.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
You got to recognize that.
Got to stay healthy. Yeah,
absolutely. Take care of yourself first, and those things, and hopefully the net effect of that's going to be more productive and more value add to the business, et cetera. So
don't feel guilty taking that PTO, and if your company's unlimited, you don't have a finite, still don't feel guilty. People say, oh, I've taken 20 already this year. I'm like, man, I was in the military. They give us 30 a year. Come on. Don't feel guilty about it. That is your time off. So, take it. As long as the mission, if you're in one of those jobs where it's unlimited, as long as the job's getting done, and you got things under control, you need to take care of yourself, and you need to take that mental break. Because if you don't, it's going to be catastrophic.
It'll catch up eventually.
Yeah, my mantra, even in interviews when we're interviewing people, is work hard, play hard. Like there needs to be a balance right there, and as a team, the cohesion between the team enjoying time away from the office or even time together, just going out for a drink or something like that, a happy hour, is very important to build the team, but also to say, hey, we're stepping away from the office, we're not staying there the whole time. So work hard, play hard.
Yeah, I think you guys said it too earlier. Is people can, Roger, you especially said it when your wife's your barometer. But and I've experienced this being a leader myself, where, and I noticed it after the fact. It was during COVID and stuff, but I was very negative, kind of got into a dark place, got burnt out. And I didn't realize it, but later I realized that like that impacted the team. So if you're not taking care of yourself, then your team's going to notice that, but they're also going to feel like, is it my fault? And so I think you have to take care of yourself, especially if you're going to want to take care of other people on your team. So with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Chris, Roger, Michael, thank you for coming on to talk about your careers, kind of lessons learned, kind of all that stuff within the cybersecurity space.
Thanks for having us, Tim.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Really appreciate you.